Welcome to Fables of Our Deconstruction, a podcast where we examine our systems of faith and culture together as we grow as people. I'm your host, Dylan. If you like what you hear, be sure to check me out at patreon.com/Dylan. If you'd like to be on a future episode, leave me a message over at 515-318-7569 or find Fables of Our Deconstruction on Anchor FM and send me a voice message. If you want your name shared, include it in your message, otherwise I'll keep you anonymous. Now let's deconstruct. Hello and welcome back to another episode. I've been seeing listenership slowly increase, and I know that I'm not hitting up the advertisement like I should, but today I think is possibly my most important episode so far. We are talking about the different arguments for why we believe what we believe. And I'm specifically deconstructing my previous religious views. And as I came out in the first episode, I'm an atheist currently. Things change, you know? Now, I should say I'm not convinced of a God or anything like that. There's no big shock value there. But the thing that I'm wrestling with this week is, why do we believe in monsters? Why do we believe in demonic forces or the devil? Because recently I completed a series of 14 illustrations of various fantasy creatures, demons or devils, satyrs, and goblins. One of my goals with these pieces, if you read the mission statement on my website, it's right there. I'm looking to deconstruct the concepts of good and evil. And a part of that goal is to utilize creatures that are otherwise maligned, otherwise marginalized, otherwise considered bad, and put them in more human settings and put them in more human situations. And I'm also trying to explore figure art. So I'm exploring the human form and transforming actual models into these so-called monsters. And some of them are fierce, and some of them are benign, but they're all around that spectrum. And I had confirmed an art gallery space in a restaurant, actually, very small. I'm trying to get my feet started in this new place. And all of these pieces were created for that in mind. Now, I've got a whole story about it that you can read over on my Patreon if you want to know exactly what all went down. But everything was ultimately rejected, even though I thought it was a go-ahead. We had hung everything on the walls, and I was kicked out simply because my work was demonic. And the reason I'm talking about that today is, yeah, it's been only a week for me since I've had to manage all of this situation, a little bit more than a week. But that's an incredible thing, because if the work is demonic and that's why it can't be there, then that implies the person rejecting it believes that demons have a particular harmful influence. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't actually believe demons or satyrs or goblins exist. I think in our souls, if you want to say we have souls, which I know aren't quantifiable, but in our personalities, in our imaginations, these things have power, these things have place, and I agree with that. And I think it's great to try to destigmatize things that are otherwise considered evil, especially if we can look at things from the sense of harm versus benefit instead of evil versus good. What can we actually learn from these things? And that's where I'm trying to come from, that's the doorway in which I'm trying to step. And someone comes back and says, no, these are evil and they're causing harm. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to wonder. Like, why do we believe in those monsters? Now, when I step back into myself, like into my past, I did at least believe in the devil to some extent. I don't know if I could say, like, oh yes, the devil's creeping around every corner, waiting to whisper something into your ear, waiting to harm you, or waiting to convince you to cause harm, waiting to convince you to become evil. But I do believe I thought there was something like the devil, and that to some extent it did want to corrupt us. But corrupt us from what? That's really the big question, I guess, right now. Because one of the parts that I suppose my work could can corrupt someone to do is to think. So if this devil exists, it's asking us to think. It's asking us to say why. It's asking us to just look deeper. It's asking us to say, what do I want? At least those are the things that I'm starting to see. And I don't believe there is a devil. Not anymore. I might draw something that has a resemblance to what you believe or someone believes is what a devil would look like. But I don't think there is a creature doing that. But clearly, there are people who do think that. One of the challenges for me is it an admission to what we are? Because if we look at the world through a particularly Christian lens, the lens that I was brought up in, we're born evil. Are we born with hypothetical horns, theoretical tails, and a simple lust to cause harm? Or are we just born? I think we're just born. But I wonder if you take that lens of born evil and you apply a fear of a devil that's creeping around corners, hiding inside someone's artwork, hiding inside the music you're listening to, trying to twist you and make you question and make you change, then as someone who rejects evil, as someone who rejects these connotations, someone who might throw out imagery, are you actually throwing out a part of yourself that you're afraid of? Do you see what you were born into in those horns and tails and possible nude bodies? Is that the thing that's causing fear? That there's a reflection of oneself in there? Many of the pieces that I drew were from feminine bodies, from models who would identify as female. And these things were seen as vile, I suppose. So I'm wondering who looked at these and what did they see when they rejected them and why? Now, I should say that all of the artwork has found a home, at least a place to hang. It's still available for sale if that's something you're interested in, but it's got a place to hang. But that doesn't absolve itself from those connotations, from that judgment. So, this is the first time I feel like I have something to say, and it actually has some level of impact. When I started in comics, the goal is to tell people that you are what you need and don't give up. And I still think that's an important message. But I also think there's radiating importance in challenging, in questioning, in asking why, in figuring out what we want, in deliberately showcasing ourselves to the world. If we want to show the world our bodies, however we want to embrace them, then we do that. If we want to show the world our minds, do that. Sorry if you hear some noise. There's a dog chewing on a bone. But clearly, there's something volatile in the work I made. Even though I feel that many of the pieces exhibit some level of peace. And I was worried that the biggest issue would be that it's sexualized. Because it is to some extent. But it was the fact that there are demons involved. And I'm trying to rewind myself and think about that headspace. Like when I believed in a devil, did I actually believe that there could be a manifest demon, a monster with horns and a tail, perhaps wings and black eyes that would appear before me and cause harm, wreak havoc? Or was that just fairy tale? Is the manifestation of an angel before someone, specifically in the context of like Mary in the Bible, is that any more grounded, real, possible in the mind of a believer than a demon appearing wreaking havoc, causing harm? Or is it easier to hold on to faith of just the God because the God doesn't get involved? The God doesn't stand there. And I kind of feel like I'm losing track of my point, but like, did I really think these things were real? Because someone else does. Do you really think there's something waiting behind every corner, waiting patiently to corrupt you the moment you walk by? Or is it a reflection of something in ourselves we're worried about? A reflection of something about who we are that scares us based on what we were told is good and what we're told is bad, as opposed to looking at that reflection and asking it, what is harmful here? And what is beneficial? And what is just me? What is just something about this human experience I'm going to have? Before I wrap this up, I want to mention that it humored me slightly that the work was rejected on its visuals because of demonic representation. Because all I could think was, what would the what would the venue owner think? What would they take away if I had drawn images of Christ? Perhaps done an entire set of 14 images on the Passion and showed a man whipped and beaten, showed a man bloodied, bruised, walking through streets, showed a man bleeding from the scalp because of a crown of thorns, or for fuck's sake, shown a guy on a cross who'd been there for several days, who'd urinated on themselves, who'd shit on himself. Had I shown all of these things that are deep and important parts of a religion that fights demons, of a religion that supposedly embraces only good, and I case those letters of good in quotes, very strong quotes. If I had shown what is clear graphic horror, what is clear violence, what is clear the story of someone being gravely harmed, but because it's a part of the celebration in that religion, would it have been okay to hang up? I'm not trying to judge the person who said this couldn't be there because it's their establishment and that's fine. It sucks. It was mismanaged, but it's fine. I just want to know why one thing is bad. Why these simple bodies on simple paper with added things like horns, fur, tails, why these things are harmful when showing someone who's been brutalized can be celebrated, is joyful. That's really challenging for me because there's clearly some setup, some concept here that shows what's supposed to be a human being harmed as good. Yet simple representations of something that might not exist, probably doesn't exist, most likely doesn't exist. A demon, a creature that supposedly hides behind every wall, showing them in a peaceful setting is harmful. It's going to be a long time before I can set this concept down and walk away because I don't know what parts I saw beauty in when I was a true believer. I really don't know if I believed these things existed, these monsters that wanted to twist and turn my concepts and my faith. Perhaps one did, and that's why I'm here, right? I'm sure some of you are thinking that, but it's really difficult for me to wrap my mind around. It took me off of social media. I haven't posted much. I haven't finished much of my new artwork that I need in the next couple weeks as my next event shows up because I've been racked with what the hell. This is the first episode I've sworn on. But here we are. Like, do you think these monsters exist? Because I can't even remember if I thought they were real. I'm just going to leave it there. Let me know what you think. And hopefully, we can find more open spaces where we can ask these questions and feel safe asking why. This has been Fables of Our Deconstruction. Fables of Our Deconstruction is created by me, Dylan Jacobson. Don't forget, leave a like and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also support me and all of my work and join my community, the Brimstone Order, at patreon.com/Dylan. And remember, you're never alone. We are in this together.